We are a 97% own label business. And therefore, to all intents and purposes, we just sell our own brand. And that's why customers are coming to us. We're predominantly a short-life chilled food business. We sell short-life ambient and long-life ambient, and our focus is on food for now, food for later, by which we mean this evening, and food for special occasions and gifting. So that's the advert done. As Heather alluded to, I've been around for a bit in the business. In fact, I've been in the food and agriculture industry now for 30 years, of which about 20 have been in M&S and about which 10 have been in my current role. And the reflection, I suppose, when I started to pull some notes together for this was that I think this is without doubt the most challenging and competitive, but also the most exciting period of my career. And that's why I wanted to talk both in terms of the challenges that we face as an industry, but also the opportunities that represent, because otherwise it could become quite dark quite quickly. So we should start with how do we look at our business? And we start this from a risk perspective basis, and we look at it from a risk perspective in two focuses. One is about how do we protect the consumer, the customer, and the second one is about how we protect the brand. We consider all the external influences that overlay that, and also the internal ones, because there are many internal influences that also affect the risk environment. We then adapt our control environment to mitigate risks. We don't try and control them. And our experience of this is that we are far more likely to be able to affect the likelihood of a risk occurring, an issue occurring, than we are about actually diminishing the impact of that risk when it does. Our action plans are designed to deliver the risk mitigations, and these are measured and reported to our board and the audit committee. Food safety and integrity, as you can see from this slide, this is a corporate risk slide, is a corporate level risk, and as such enjoys greater scrutiny and input from both exec directors and non-execs alike. The scrutiny and challenge, I believe, is helpful. I don't always feel like it, but it is helpful, and has created a greater awareness and appreciation of the issues that we're trying to manage, so that when things do happen, we're starting from a much more mature position of understanding within the organisation. We've talked about some of the challenges this morning. Kenneth Cowman gave us some real clear indications, as have Ewan and Alistair. These are the sorts of things that we face into as a business continually. And I don't think that would be any other retailer, probably any other food business could probably stand up and give a very similar list of issues and challenges. There are a lot of them. They are complex. Some of the issues that we get challenged on are based on single agendas, and those are generally the ones that make them media worthy. The other ones, which are more complicated and more technical, are the ones that don't, but they all need managing. You have to decide which ones are important to the customer, which ones are important to the brand, and which are important to others. Because in a time and cash constrained environment, you have to prioritise where you're going to put your focus and when you're going to put your resources. As part of our quality management system, we have feedback loops to ensure that we learn and we share from each incident. I can't actually think of an incident that's occurred over the last 5-10 years where we haven't emerged as a stronger, more resilient business, even where we aren't implicated. And if you take something like horse meat, which was referred to earlier, as a business we weren't implicated, but we were part of an industry that was. Principally, the reason for us as an organisation not being implicated was because our supply chains were created to deliver consistent quality, and that consistent quality going into manufacturing. And the reason that we weren't implicated was because all our beef that we were using in manufacturing was all fresh. And therefore the opportunity to defraud didn't exist because there wasn't the time in the supply chain to be able to make that change and make that effect. But we could have sat back and looked on at a distance. But we got the opportunity to spend quite a lot of time with Chris Elliott and his review team. I became really clear that there were certain areas of the supply chain that were vulnerable, and there were certain things that we were taking for granted, which I'll come back to. We actually took our beef supply chain and we completely redesigned it. Fewer, shorter, and more transparent supply routes. And that mantra we've continued to apply to all our raw material streams over the last 4 or 5 years. We had a DNA program, but it was on Aberdeen Angus. We were checking that we got the right breed in the pack, not the right species. We've now extended the DNA program to every single piece of beef that we use in our business. But we've also then looked at the implications beyond beef as well. One of the points that Chris Elliott made was that we're all too trusting. We've got supply relationships which go back 40, 50, 60 years. The reason those relationships have lasted is because that element of trust and understanding and alignment is there. But trust given away is a major risk to our business and to anybody's business. And it starts to make your supply chains an easy target. So what we did is we created a new program based purely on integrity. A new audit, unannounced, samples taken by the auditors of raw material, not finished product. And then we extended it beyond our manufacturers to our raw material supply chains as well. In some sectors, this has caused us to reevaluate and redesign the supply chains. In others, I think we've gained a greater and greater understanding of where vulnerability exists. We've risk assessed that and we've changed our approach accordingly. In certain areas, we've taken full responsibility for the auditing and compliance of our raw material supply chains into our manufacturers. We've done this for a number of reasons. One is they were having so many audits, they became audit blind. So we've reduced the audit burden, we've reduced the duplication, and it allows us to drive focus into critical areas. We've done this, therefore, at no extra cost to us or our supply base. In fact, in many cases, we've reduced costs by better risk assessment and a more focused intervention. But we need to be realistic. The cost pressures on all sectors of the food industry, and this has been alluded to earlier, are colossal and they are unrelenting. Whether it's labour costs, raw material inflation, utilities, taxation, or the impact of climate change, or the impact of trade disputes around the world, disrupting normal supply and demand balances. These challenges that we face are seen as an opportunity by some less scrupulous people in our industry or on the edge of our industry. And none of us can combat these risks alone. And as an industry, I believe that we've responded well to this, creating one of the broadest collaborations to further protect consumer and the reputation, the hard-earned reputation of the food industry across the UK. In 2014, we created a network called FIN, the Food Industry Intelligence Network. The objective initially, and this came out of Chris Elliott's review, was a collaboration to create a safe haven to share intelligence on supply chain risks. Incorporated as a company in 2015, it now represents a wide range of businesses, over 30 members, with in excess of £160 billion worth of turnover. Members pay a modest fee. There's another advert, by the way. We pay a modest fee, but it's a play and pay rule. So you have to submit data and intelligence into the network on a quarterly basis. It's anonymised, it's reviewed, and it's expertly analysed. And a report is produced for members highlighting issues, threats, and risks. We then took a deep breath and opened up a dialogue with our regulators. In November 2016, we signed our first intelligence sharing agreement with Food Standards Scotland. And I have to say a huge thank you to Jeff, Ron and the team for actually helping us on that journey to opening up the industry in the way that we share intelligence and data. That was followed in late 2017 with an agreement with the Food Safety Authority of Ireland, and I'm confident that we will complete a similar agreement with the Food Standards Agency in a matter of weeks. We're working together now to highlight areas which are of interest to one another, and where appropriate, we agree how we intervene or disrupt in those supply chains. As I say, without the pioneering that we've been able to do with Food Standards Scotland, we wouldn't have achieved what we are doing today. And all this is well and good, but we still get challenges, and we need to work hard to gather trust, not only with customers, but other stakeholders, be they government, NGOs, media, or supplier partners. Things that were assumed in the past need to be evidenced. Increasingly, our word is no longer enough, and businesses that are willing to embrace the demand for transparency will find this an opportunity. We aren't perfect as a business by any stretch of anyone's imagination, but we are open, whether it's about Campylobacter testing, the location of our factories, increasingly the location of our farmers. We have, for some time now, been publishing data also on pesticide residues, our ethical trading performance along the end-to-end supply chain within the supply base. I can only see this increasing over the coming years, and we need to make the information relevant and accessible. It does require buy-in from the top of the business to make this a way of working, so that you progressively share more and more and don't end up only sharing the things that you're comfortable with. Which brings me on to more everyday customer challenge with regard to health and healthy choices, of which we have heard an awful lot already this morning. Now, M&S is seen and has been seen, and probably still is, as an indulgent business. After all, we have Percy Pig, we have Cullen the Caterpillar, and of course the infamous melt-in-the-middle chocolate pudding. So it might surprise you that over 40% of our sales come from products that have at least one health attribute. We also have the top 2 healthy meals brands in the market with around 60% market share. Our customers are more interested than ever in which choices to make and how they make healthy choices. And one of the good things to come out of FIR was a consolidation of the way that we present nutritional information on front of pack. But the challenge that health represents is hugely complex. Not helped always by the complexity of the EU health regulation. Whilst that's prevented many spurious health claims, I also believe it's inhibited innovation in the very area where our customers need it most. In an environment where cost challenges are omnipresent, putting cost into a product, not being able to communicate the benefit to the consumer, doesn't square anyone's circle. Until recently, all our dairy farmers fed their cows a feed supplement that reduces the saturated fat content of the milk. The level wasn't sufficient to meet the requirements of the regulation, so we weren't able to communicate it. Sadly, we've come to the conclusion that the right thing to do is to remove this supplement from the feed, which will have a detrimental impact on the saturated fat content of milk, and put the saving that will be made into reducing the price of milk. It's a little incremental health gain that is lost, and I think that's more than a little bit of a shame. But health means, as we've heard again this morning already, that means different things to all of us. And our customers want us to inspire, not educate. I think that was really interesting. We've heard that, this thing about do not preach. Again, this doesn't mean that everyone wants a high-performance lifestyle. For some, they want to be able to live their current lifestyle for longer. That might mean simply going for a walk or playing with their grandchildren in the park. It's not about the people we see on the television winning medals. They've understood reformulation to take things out, be it salt, artificial flavours, artificial colours, hydrogenated vegetable oils, and so on. Now they want benefits. They want simple solutions. So we ask ourselves the question continually, what are we doing to help our customers lead healthier lifestyles? 18 months ago, we innovated a process to introduce vitamin D into all our bread loaves and rolls, including the bread that's used to manufacture our sandwiches. A simple action which delivers a health benefit with no particular change in behaviour required by the customer. Equally, our Balance for You range, developed with the Rowett Institute in Scotland, is scientifically proven to deliver a 4% weight loss in 4 weeks. I am the living embodiment of our product range. Thank you. This is done through the product formulation, diet planning, and importantly, the delivery of satiety on a reduced calorie intake. The only claim we can make, however, is high protein and balanced carbs, despite the fact we have a scientific dossier as big as this lectern, because it doesn't fit with the current EU health claim regulation. And I think these things are things we need to try and work out how we're going to tackle it. It's another missed opportunity. Now, you might be a bit surprised as to why I put a human rights slide up, and have I got my slides mixed up? But I thought I should talk about human rights on 2 fronts. Firstly, good relationships with employees is a prerequisite for a good culture in an organisation, and great outcomes, be they quality, safety, or basic sustainability of your organisation, are utterly dependent on the relationship you have with the people that you employ. The point of raising it is that the majority of the assessment of our performance is done remotely from the business. And I thought it was quite interesting because increasingly we're finding from a brand perspective that the people that are judging the brand are looking at us very much from the outside rather than sitting down and talking to us. The CHRB, which was a benchmark of businesses, corporate human rights benchmark, put a league table together. It was only on published information and data. They didn't actually talk to us until after they compiled the draft report. We did okay. We came in the top quartile, in the top tier globally. And so that was a good thing. But I think what it says to me, and the reason for raising it here, is that you have to be now, if you're a brand such as M&S, you have to be able to actually put these things out in the public domain and then live up to them. It's almost back to the transparency point, I suppose. And if you aren't able or willing to publish these documents, then I think that you will fail in stakeholders' eyes, not just the NGOs, but investors too. The CHRB was an investor-led assessment of our human rights performance. Our modern-day slavery statement has been widely commended. But what about those businesses that are, in a regulated environment, required to publish a modern slavery statement who haven't? Somewhere within this, opportunities and challenges, there has to be a stick that goes alongside the carrot. And further on people, my final area of challenge for us as an industry is how we continue to attract, develop and retain the talent for the future. I don't think as an industry we talk enough about this. As an industry, under the IGD, we work across both secondary and tertiary education to do this in conjunction with others within that group. Over the last 10 years, we've created a network of summer schools which has targeted 15 to 17-year-olds. We're trying to attract the people that are making the decision about what careers or what sectors they want to work in. That's been reasonably successful, but it's a small dot when you think about who we're competing against, other industries and other sectors that we're competing against. Now, M&S, like many other businesses, we offer a range of internships, undergraduate placements, a structured graduate program. And we've attracted, I believe, some fantastic talent over the last 5-10 years. But we recognise that we need to do more to make not only joining M&S attractive, but also staying and developing a career with us, what we want to do, particular challenge with the millennials. We agreed with the board that we would apply the same professional status to the technical team as we do to the lawyers. You've got to complete a minimum of 35 hours of CPD in addition to the mandatory technical training. This is accredited by the Institute of Food Science and Technology independently on our behalf. I think, though, that the extension of this thought process needed to be more inspirational. And being more inspirational, what's it led to? We now offer career grants to every single member of the technical team. And that might be for people to go and get further qualifications. It might be for them to travel and explore issues of interest and intrigue to them and which relate to their role within the business. I'm convinced that these, combined with a willingness to recognise and reward the competence required to deal with the complexity that I've talked about so far in today's environment, is increasingly going to become a base requirement if we are to attract and retain the talent that we all need as an industry to be successful. The opportunities, I believe, are remarkable. The rewards are equal to that, but there are other sectors who would love to and do attract our talent. Without these highly competent professionals, we would face a much more uncertain and a much more challenging future. I trust that you recognise some of the many challenges, but equally you can see that my glass is not half empty, but is actually teetering towards overflowing. They represent opportunities for us, our organisations and our industry, and it is up to us to grab those opportunities and embrace them for the future. Thank you very much for your attention.